There's a quote by Albert Einstein that says, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing." Now, you may know that I scaled my agency up to just shy of about 80K per month. And to date, my best month has been 150K or over 150K at this point. That being said, there's one thing that scaled me the fastest. And sure, ads, yes, but it's not that. It's the method behind that, which is the scientific method. Now, maybe you're familiar with the scientific method, maybe you're not. It's not some gimmicky method that I created or something like that. It's like the basis of all science, basically, right? And this is how you move as fast as physically possible. It's pushed extremely hard in the startup world, although they don't refer to it as the scientific method. You'll hear the word iteration thrown around a lot, but I want to cover with you the fastest way to get to 7 figures in your business, right? Whether it's an agency or some other kind of high ticket business. This is what worked for me, and it's something that it just works worldwide among the absolute biggest companies in the world. The first thing is to run a test, and not just to run any test, but to run an intentionally scrappy test, okay? I'm talking like you don't want to spend too much time working on perfecting this thing before you even test it, right? We've all heard quotes along the lines of like professionalism slows you down, essentially, right? That's what they're trying to say. And it's true, but doing it in practice is a bit of a different story. So let's say you want to test an ad. One thing that I always say to my clients, to my friends, whoever, is that if your ad doesn't work when it's just being filmed on your phone selfie mode, it's not going to work if you slap some $150 editing on it, right? So why waste the time and waste the money doing that when you can just run and test the message itself, right? Because if you're starting completely from scratch, then it's more important to test the message than it is to test anything else, right? And again, if the message is not hitting, it, with like just basic captions from like Opus, for example, which has like AI captions, if it's not working with that, it's not, fancy editing is not going to save an ad script that doesn't work, right? So number one is run an intentionally scrappy test just to get things moving as quickly as physically possible. You want to reduce friction to action, and starting is the hardest part, okay? Now, once you're done that, the second thing that we want to do is assess the data. Right. So when you run this test, maybe you're sending cold emails, maybe you're running ads, maybe you're testing a new sales pitch or a new sales strategy or something like that. Right. You need to collect data. Right. Now, that's not in this. The implication here is that you're collecting data and you're assessing the data and looking at the results of this test. Right. So I think this is the best way to go. Let's try it out. You get the results back. What happened? Is your link CTR really good and maybe your lead cost is really good, but the lead quality coming through is terrible? Well, that means something's wrong with the message, right? There are a couple things to look at. There's the quantitative side, there's the qualitative side. So, you need to learn what you're paying attention to and what's important to look at. But, if you're not even tracking your stats, then you're in trouble in the first place, right? But once you assess the data, you can diagnose what you believe to be the single most likely problem with the test that you ran and the biggest thing that's holding it back from being successful. We want to start with the biggest, most important building blocks first, the foundational things, the huge things, where if you don't do them correctly, everything else doesn't work no matter how good those things are. We want to start with those things first. Right? That's why in business, oftentimes we start with the offer, and that's why so many people are obsessed with offers right now. If your offer sucks, well, everything's built on your offer. Now, the third thing that we want to do is learn, right, from this data. Learn from the data. So again, that's where I'm kind of talking about like what exactly is the problem? Why do we think it went wrong? But also, what do we think we could do better? Why do we think it went wrong on a deeper level? And what are these foundational things that I made a mistake about or that I was wrong about that I should change next time before I run my next test? And like you can do this in an extremely short period of time. What we really want to do is shorten the amount of time it takes us to do a full lap here. Like that's what I'm on my trackpad, so my mouse movements are botched. But we want to move through these as quickly as physically possible. So that's why we want to start as quickly as possible, run a scrappy test, just take a look at the data in the shortest period of time possible, right? So if you're looking at, if you need to look at your call costs, right? Okay, well, we need to spend enough money to make sure that we're getting enough data back in a short period of time, such as 7 days. Then at the end of the 7 days, we'll look at all of the data, right? What KPIs are we hitting and what are we not hitting? Okay, now why are we not hitting this one? What's the bottleneck is number one, right? That's what you can learn from the data. But then from there, number two is why is that not working? Again, I alluded to this at this point here, but we really need to understand, like, why do you really think it didn't work? Like, think for yourself. A lot of people don't think for themselves. They just kind of, oh, it doesn't work. I used to be guilty of this, like, in the biggest way. If something didn't work, I'd be like, oh, it doesn't work. It's like, no, that's so wrong. It's so wrong and so poisonous to your whole process and your growth. It's terrible. Like, shifting from that mindset of something works or something doesn't work to what extent is this thing working, where's the bottleneck, and how can I build this process? And when I go like this with my hands, I'm looking at one end of the funnel to the other end of the funnel, right? Let's say it's someone seeing an ad all the way through to someone closing, right? There are a bunch of different metrics along the way there that we're paying attention to. So we need to look at where's the bottleneck right now and just focus everything in on that and just keep testing a bunch of different things on that until you figure that out. You know, you look at the website, the startup Weebly. Maybe you've heard of them. Again, maybe not. They became a pretty prominent figure around like 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013 kind of thing, or somewhere around there. They blew up. They ended up selling for like 350 million. What they did to find product market fit was they did this loop on the product side 27 times. There's an interview or a presentation on the Y Combinator YouTube channel where one of the founders of Weebly explains this and says literally it took them 27 attempts to find product market fit. 27, where they completely changed the entire product, got feedback from their clients, tracked the stats. It took them 27 times to figure it out, right? It took them 18 months. He was saying, going back, I probably could have done it in about 6 months. That's like an expert level person, right? So it still takes a while, which is why this is so, this can be really intimidating, or it can be easy to fall into this trap of, oh, it just doesn't work, right? But what we want to do instead is learn from the data and think, why didn't this work? And what can I do to potentially solve this problem? Great. Now that we've done that, we have an idea of what we want to do. We want to actually iterate. Meaning, iterate literally just means like change, make a change. Like it's just a cool word for making a small change. Right? So let's say that with your message, you find that, oh, this angle, like the way we're kind of approaching this with the market, like, you know, maybe we're not promising a big enough result. Like maybe we're only promising like a 2x on their money at the high end. Right? Well, with what else is out there on the market, like maybe you're not offering a good enough return, so they're not interested. Okay, well, let's test offering a higher return. Keep all other variables exactly the same. And now we know, okay, well, the next thing we want to do is just test offering a 5 to 10 times return, provided you can deliver that and provided it's realistic, et cetera, right? That's all extremely important. But at the same time, like we're just looking at this simple iteration, right? So those guys with their product, it's like different, user experience points, and that's a whole different scenario because it's a software business and they're, focused on just growing users and growing strictly based on referrals and all that, which is a completely different growth strategy than what a lot of people in our industry do, or what pretty much every single person in our industry does. That being said, now you have a change, right? Once you have that change, the last step is literally just go to step one. So there are 5 steps here. I just had to fill the 5th one in because this is just a Canva template. But the last step is just go back to running a scrappy test. Like, okay, now we keep all variables the same because look, that didn't work. So thank God we didn't spend $150 on an editor and wait for a 5-day turnaround to launch this ad and have it fall flat in like 4 days, right? It's like, well, we could have just launched the ad in 1 day, had it fall flat in 4 days, and then launch another ad without having to wait the additional 5 days and spend the additional $150. Now we're back to this point where we're running the scrappy test where we find that, okay, now we're running a bigger claim. Cool, so now maybe what's happening is maybe the first time around, you weren't even getting leads like within KPI. Like your lead cost KPI is like triple what it should, or your lead cost metric is triple what it should be, triple KPI. Well, that's pretty bad, right? You're way overspending. So maybe this time around, you're within KPI, But maybe at the same time, this time around, the amount of people who are like booking calls directly from your funnel automatically, let's say it's a VSL funnel, maybe like 1% of people are doing that, or maybe nobody booked a call. It's like, okay, well, now we know that you're bottlenecked to the VSL. We're bringing people to the VSL, but the VSL is not converting. Okay, so that's what we've learned from the data. Well, that's us assessing the data and diagnosing the next problem, right? Now that we've diagnosed the next problem, we run back to learn. Okay, well, why don't we think the VSL is working properly? Well, we know, at least initially, that, well, we changed our claim in the ad, right, and maybe on the landing page, but did we update the VSL to fit that? Maybe not. Okay, well, now we know we need to update the VSL to be adjusted to the bigger claim now, right? So you can keep the exact same VSL script, but just adjust the parts where there's the claim. And if you can even dress up in the same attire, pull up your webcam, ideally the lighting's the same behind you, whatever, best case scenario. Worst case scenario, you just re-record the VSL. It's like a 10-minute scripted video. It's not that serious, 20 minutes, whatever. Then you re-record it with just that one change. There's your iteration. Now we just go to step one, see what's happening. Now in the meantime, you don't even need to turn ads off at this point, because you can still call your leads and book appointments and, make up for the low VSL booking metric. But that being said, now we're moving on to the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. And then once your funnel metrics are really nice and clean and things are actually working, now it's like, okay, well, maybe let's make the ads look a little nicer, right? Or maybe let's make the VSL look a little bit nicer. Let's focus on the branding, this kind of thing. Like, I'm not focused on making beautiful branding and websites and whatever. Like, I whip this thing up on Canva to just show you what I'm thinking about and give you a diagram, right? Like, I'm practicing this here. Right? I've tested different YouTube video ideas. I find what works. I find what doesn't. This title of this video I know works historically for my channel. So I'm testing a new placeholder and talking about a concept because I know people like when I talk about concepts. Right? The hook is also proven. So I didn't change that. Like literally, if you go back to my channel and search the word fastest and watch the first 10 seconds of those videos, it's exactly the same as this video. I just choose a different quote and I say, hi, I have scaled an agency, so I know what I'm talking about. And then I just start talking, right? That's what I've done. So I'm practicing this. I've been practicing this, and I live by this. I launched an ad campaign a few months ago, and I was off the mark with what I thought the market wanted. And so I was like, I think I have everything right, but there's this one change that needs to be made. I make one change, albeit it was a really big change. But I changed my unique mechanism, and I also changed the result, right? But in doing so, before, my KPIs were beautiful. Everything was beautiful except for show rate, and lead quality was brutal. Literally 68% of leads were invalid, wrong phone numbers, fjjjj@gmail.com, with the name as HGJJ, terrible, right? But then when I made this change, all the metrics stayed the same, meaning lead cost was great, booking cost was great, but show rate's now great and lead quality's great too. So that solved that problem, right? Now it's just iterating on the sales pitch, right? I'm literally doing this live and it's really extremely, extremely effective. And there are scientists who have quoted saying if you don't follow this, you might as well give up your right to be a human. That's very roughly quoted, and that's not actually what it said. Hold on, let me pause this and give you what the quote actually said. Give me a second here. Here it is. To mistrust science and deny the validity of scientific method is to resign your job as a human. You'd better go look for work as a plant or a wild animal. From a scientist. I forgot the name of the scientist, but you can look it up. But seriously, the scientific method is everything. It's so important. And I in my early days, I was like, it can't be that simple. It's that simple. It's kind of it can be kind of treacherous. You're like, dude, I have to make 50 iterations to get to where I want to go. It's yes. So you better start now. That's the harsh truth about the whole thing. But the beauty in all of it is the simplicity is this. It's this is all you have to do. And you can do it based on intuition, yes. So, but at the same time, it helps to work with people who know what they're doing and everything like that, or have friends who are ahead of you and that kind of thing. But in any case, this is a method that I now live by and wish I lived by from day one, because I would be far further ahead than I am now. That being said, if you want to work closer with me personally, you can book a call with me in the description. If not, totally fine. There are tons of free videos here that you can watch. Just click whatever's popping up on screen here, and I'll see you there.